Let's go. Right. It gives me great pleasure to have English Jose, Chris Agutteer back. It's wonderful stuff. Originally, I remember interviewing you, Chris. You wouldn't remember this, but episode 7 of this podcast, we're up to episode 110 now.
Wow.
Yeah. The hair's looking as great as always.
It's thinning. I'm having to push it forward now because I can't sweep it back anymore because of my hairline. Shocking.
Wow,
I think I've got about 3 haircuts left, Chris.
Absolute pleasure. The returning Chris Agutteer. First, before we start kicking off, thank you very much for this, Chris, and good morning.
No, pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
It's been, was it about 2.5 years, 2-ish years since you left?
Yeah.
Now, for those that don't know, because we have had a number of newer fans come in, so you then moved on to a position at Stevenage.
Yeah.
That was a kind of academy role, wasn't it, as I remember?
Yeah, so I got offered the so it's called a professional development phase lead. So that was basically overseeing the 21s and 18s at Stevenage. But when I was offered that role, as I was offered it, the first team manager at the club ended up leaving the club. So for the initial sort of month that I was at Stevenage, I ended up working with the first team on an interim basis between one manager and then Paul Tisdale, who eventually come in. So I sort of wanted to step away from first team football and have a bit of a breather, and then got asked to go straight back into it again. So yeah,
you were on the telly, weren't you, Chris? I'm sure there was a cup game or something. You on the telly?
Yeah. So I got offered. I met them on a Friday, and then got offered the job on the Sunday, and then we had MK Dons in the FA Cup first round on the Tuesday. So the first time I met the group was in the changing room before the MK Dons game, where I'd imagine every single one of them thought, "Who's this guy?" So it was a whirlwind, but brilliant. I mean, within a month, I'd gone from being at the pilot field to just, as I said, against MK Dons in the FA Cup first round, trying to figure out how to get the best of Liam Manning, who was flying at the time at MK. So yeah, it was a great example of how crazy football can be, to be honest.
Yeah. So I mean, it's your time there. You were there for about 6 months to a year at
I was there for a year.
Yeah.
I was at Stevenage for a year. So we'd done 4 games with the first team, which was great. And there was an opportunity to stay part of the first team there. But as I said, one of the reasons I sort of stepped away from the first team originally was I needed a break.
Yeah.
I needed to sort of mentally recharge and refresh. So I turned that first team opportunity down at Stevenage and just took up my role as the PDP lead. As I said, looking after the 21s and 18s, and it was brilliant. Great club, great people, really looked after us as well. It was a challenge because I was travelling up there most days, especially for the first 7-8 months, and then Stevenage were really good, ended up putting me up in hotels and host families to sort of try and ease the challenges of the travelling. But yeah, no, the year was brilliant. Worked with great people. So Paul Tisdale, top man, very, very good coach. Ronnie Henry, he's become a friend, to be honest. He's brilliant, brilliant to work with. And then Steve Evans and Paul Rayner came in. So that was interesting, like seeing a different way of working, but ultimately you can't sort of take away from the success he's had. So yeah, no, it was a really good year, challenging year, as I said, because of travelling.
Yeah, that must have been.
I wanted a rest. Well, I wanted to rest and sort of recuperate and step away from first team stuff just to recharge. But then I found myself doing hundreds of miles every week. But that's football. Sometimes you got to do those things to sort of try and move forwards.
Yeah, and then obviously the Brighton opportunity came up. Was that they had contacted you, or you'd put some feelers out for somewhere nearer, or?
It was a bit of both, to be honest. Yeah. There was the job up, and obviously because I worked there sort of quite a while ago, there was people there that I knew, and just a few conversations and turned into job interviews. And I mean, I took a Stevenage team down to play Brighton, and we were very good on the night. So I think that went a long way to sort of helping me get the role. But as I said, I had existing relationships there as well. So yeah, I went for an interview process and got offered the job, which was great. Great opportunity, which really exciting at the time.
Yeah, and that was to work with the sort of kids the same age, sort of like that 23s, 19s again.
No, this was so the club have got a different type of model. It's quite it's quite well documented. They have a specialist coaching model, so they do in possession coaches, out of possession coaches. So rather than a traditional lead and assistant, which is it's less of the norm now. I mean, more and more clubs are sort of coming up with more innovative ways to structure their coaching program. But as I said, Brighton was in possession, out of possession coaches. So you found yourself working across and up and down stages, in possession, out of possession. So I mean, I worked predominantly with the 15s and 16s, and then but that also included a game away at Aston Villa with the 18s. So that was a good experience. It was different to what I've done before. So it was, as I said, I'm happy all the time. I feel like I'm challenged and learning, and that was definitely a different type of challenge and a different learning experience, which was good.
Yeah, with obviously, I've always wanted to ask that with Stevenage. Obviously, the facilities were better than at Hastings, but that's soon going to change. We all know that. But what's the difference between, say, that Stevenage and the Brighton sort of that sort of level of facilities? If you could sort of fill us in on that.
Brighton's like Disneyland. To be honest, it's in terms of like the facilities, unbelievable. So yeah, it's state of the art. So yeah, no, it's within that environment, there should be no excuses really. And top players. So yeah, no, it's a fantastic building. So, but that to be honest is the going rate now across the country in terms of like top end Premier League academies. I mean, every Saturday, Sunday, or midweek, or whenever you've got a game, you're going to an unbelievable state of the art facility, which is great. But it's not all. As I said, there's pros and cons to that, because whether that's the reality of what a majority of the boys are going to face when they're older, I'm not so sure. So, but as I said, as a working environment, it's fantastic facility.
I was going to actually touch on that in terms of the getting players ready. Because I do hear a lot of the time, a lot of people say that academy football doesn't get those players ready for adult football, and a lot of people sit in academies and then almost disappear. I mean, what do you think about that, Chris?
I just think it's I think if you look at any elite sport, I think the reason it is elite is it's very difficult to get there. Yeah. So I always think the numbers in terms of those that are successful getting to the top are always going to be relatively small because of just the demands of the elite level of the game. But no, I wouldn't want to knock the academy program, because, as I said, I think there's far more positives to the process as a whole as opposed to negatives. Obviously, there's going to be a trade-off in everything. So what you may, it depends as well what you're preparing the boys for. Are you prepared for League Two, League One? And you could argue, if you're at a top Premier League club, you're not. You're preparing them for international football and Premier League football, and a world-class challenge. So what I would say is I think with the environments that the boys spend most of their time in terms of what they're trying to prepare them for, that's the ideal. That's the end game. So yeah, I think with everything there's a balance, there's a trade-off. You get some things and you lose other things, and it's really sort of trying to prioritize what you're going after. Really, I don't think what I don't think you can do is try and do everything, because then you'll end up. I think you've got to sort of put your flag in the sand and think, this is what we're doing, and if it doesn't meet certain boxes or tick certain boxes, then so be it.
Okay, right then. Right, back at Hastings.
Yes.
See, very happy you're here. Okay, so Chris, you come in after the Barnes experiment, which started brightly but faded quite strongly, and you've come in. I know that you'd seen a couple of the games. I mean, first of all, where do you think things went wrong? And then after that, Chris, with almost the same team, with three or four players leaving, the results have been so much different, but also the performances have been so much different. What do you think was first of all the problem there, and what sort of tweaks have you made to kind of change things?
I think it's difficult to sort of comment too much on Barnes' time at the club, because what I would say is from the outside you only get a snapshot of what's really going on. But what I would say is, and I think of why we've had success as a club over the last 5 years, it's been doing things a certain way on the foundation of a core of local players that have an affinity with the club, that have a relationship with the fan base, probably have family members that are in the fan base. Couple that with 4 or 5 academy players that have come through the system at the club that again have got that strong connection and that bond with the club, with 2 or 3 players coming in from further afield that are the right type of character. And I think that model has been, well, it's been successful, hasn't it? I think there's certain clubs where identities are a little bit stronger and a little bit more deeply embedded. And I think especially with like seaside towns and stuff like that. And, you know, I don't know whether or not it is a fact of location, but there seems to be something different about a Hastings and about a Worthing and about a Bognor. And I think part of that will be recruitment, because simply players need to travel 1,000,000 miles to get to the football club, for one. But then equally for our local players to leave Hastings United or to travel further afield, it is that far that the challenges around the travel, it becomes that much more difficult. So I just feel like what the club and the identity of the team should be is as I said, a core of local players that have a connection with the club. I just think it's built for that. As I said, that doesn't mean that if you live 20 minutes from the ground that you're you're just going to get an opportunity. Equally, you've got to be good enough to represent the football club and perform on the pitch and put a level of performance in which is demanded and which the supporter base deserves, really. So it's one of those things. It's probably difficult to quantify a little bit, but there's just something different about Hastings. There's something different, as I said, about these seaside clubs that I think there's a certain way of doing it, and especially for it to be sustainable as well, because unless you've got a bottomless pit of money where you can recruit players from here, there and everywhere, I just can't see it being sustainable, to be honest. And ultimately, I don't think that's the best way to win games as well. You want men representing the shirt, as I said, that have a connection. That, we've got 4 or 5 lads that have played in the last couple of games that have been here since they was 10, 11. So, I think that, and I think one, that means that the club is that much more important to them. But also, too, the supporters will see that and almost be more forgiving of that as well. If you've got a local lad that's given his heart and soul to something that he is fully invested in, I think the supporters will go, do you know what, that's fair enough. Like, he's given us everything. Yeah, it might not be perfect, which the last 2 games definitely haven't been. But I think if you've got that type of lad on the pitch, I think it makes a huge difference. I just think it's mutually beneficial. The fact that I'm probably a bit vague around that is because as I said, it's just a feeling I have. Like when I come back into the building, when I come and watch a couple of games, like it's just a feeling that this club and the players on the pitch, it demands a certain type, and I think it's I think if you get that right, I think it can fly. But then equally, as I said, I think if the supporters can see lads that are out there that are giving everything, where there's a connection, I think you can't really go wrong with it, to be honest.
Certainly not. Okay, Axel, you took this. Let's talk about you this opportunity coming up. What brought you back? I mean, I know obviously you were interviewed by the ownership. How did they sell the club to you, or did you need the club selling to you? Were you already?
No, I didn't need it selling to me at all. Obviously, I looked at academy football and couple that with, after the first period of time in first team football, I was knackered. I think I've said it to Chris. I was tired. Like, we've done just under 5 years and working across the 18s, 19s, 21s first team, done over 450 games of football. I was tired and I needed a break. And rather than sit there and not do the club justice and do the role justice, I ended up stepping away. As I said, I think that was 70% of my decision there. And then there's an opportunity that comes up to work in academy football, and I've always wanted to do that on a full-time basis. And I've scratched that itch. Couple that with, I feel like I've recharged and refreshed, and also I've had a couple of years where I've realised that I think I'm best in first team football. That's the journey I want to go on. It's more risky. It's not as safe, but life's too short. You've got to take risks and you've got to have a go. And what I would say is it's interesting because when I was originally at Hastings, and as I said, I've said it repeatedly, it was amazing. And again, like with my previous answer around what this club represents and what it demands, it is special. And I'm not just saying that, it is special. So when I sort of had the opportunity to come back, I didn't think twice, to be honest. And yeah, it's just, as I said, this is where I want to be. This is the journey I want to go on, and I think I can do it as well. I think I can have a positive impact at the club. What I wouldn't want to do is come back into this environment and not be a success and maybe undermine some of the positive experiences and memories that we've had from the previous experience. So
you started all right.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think so. Yeah, but it's a project I can get my teeth stuck into. As I said, I've had a couple of years away from it, and I go, I want to do this. I want to have a real good go at this. And as I said, we're better than Hastings. I want to try and help the club move forwards. I think I know how we can go about that. It's a very united front as well, so you've got everyone pulling in the right direction, in the same direction. So, why wouldn't you take this opportunity when it comes up?
No, I'm happy, mate. You've bit their hands off. You've come back. In terms of what the club can do, because we had before previous. I did an interview with Paul Barnes, and it was all budgets and all these things come out, and social media, whatever. But in terms of what the club's offering now, and is it steady ship? Is it reasonable targets? What can you tell us? Because I obviously don't want to know everything, but like in terms of the club's vision.
Well, because obviously ever since I left Hastings originally, I've always followed the club, and when I saw Gaz drive it forwards like he done, and eventually got the club over the line in terms of promotion. It was, as I said, I've been there every step of the way. Like when there was talk of budgets and things like that, and financial challenges, obviously you hear it when you follow the club, and I thought, well, that's interesting. But all I can say is this is the best situation I've seen Hastings in since I've been involved at the club. So from my previous time, in terms of financial support, in terms of clear direction, what we're going after, this period that I'm in now, walking through the door, this is the best situation I've seen Hastings in. And I think probably what sort of shows that more than anything is the fact I'm leaving a Premier League football club in a very steady job.
Yeah.
To join Hastings United. I think that maybe or hopefully shows that things are very settled and the plan is very clear, the direction is very clear, and there's real clarity around expectations. We know what we want to do, and equally the financial support is there for us to fulfil those ambitions. So yeah, it's a good time. As I said, when you hear, as I said, question marks around finances and things like that, you obviously do worry, because you have a history with the club and you're investing in the club and you want the club to move forward. What you don't want it to do is put 5 years of hard work in for that then to all be undermined and fall apart. Like, you want it to keep moving forwards. Yeah. So then when I spoke to the owners and the picture was made very clear, it's like, oh, we're in a really good place. We're all right. We can, which again just makes it even more exciting in terms of, right, let's see what we can do.
Good. Very good. Ags, obviously a few ins and outs since you've come in, Aggie. A massive one in particular, obviously Craig Stone leaving, someone who had done some great service for Hastings in previous years, played through the pain barrier, been magnificent for a number of years for us in defence. I mean, any words you got about Stoney?
Nothing but positives. Obviously, I've tried to persuade him to come here for about 18 months before we eventually signed him. So I've known him from when we worked together at East Borough. He's he's proper man, proper human being. Does what he says he's going to do. Actions speak louder than words. I mean, he's won about 1 million promotions. He said when he came in, he was going to come here and get his whatever number of promotion it was, and he's done that. He's been really loyal to the club. As I said, it's a big loss. It's a big loss for us. I would much rather him still be in the building, but ultimately, I think when you've given the service that he's given, you need to be respectful of when they believe it's time to call it a day. And I think the club's done that whilst putting the club's best interests at heart and making sure that we've come to a really positive arrangement with Ramsgate. We've also respected Stoney's wishes of going in a different direction, and so I think the way the whole situation has been dealt with has been really classy. No animosity. Everyone's come out of it in a positive place, because what we wouldn't want to do is have somebody in the building that didn't want to be here.
Yeah, exactly.
No matter how good they are. I mean, Stoney will be the best centre back at this level. I'm pretty confident in that, right, in terms of his all round game and his experience and what he can still bring to the table. So it is a big loss, but ultimately, like you want people here that, like I've alluded to earlier, they're all pulling in the same direction. And as I said, Stoney's been a brilliant servant to the club and deserves that opportunity to leave on his terms.
Yeah, and he'd probably get himself another promotion with Ramsgate. Good luck to him. I mean, again, one of my favourite moments of Stoney, where you weren't there at the time, was Stoney in his underpants on top of the bar doing a nice dance, but we won't go there.
Yeah, I don't know why that's one of your best moments, Chris. But...
yeah, well, yeah.
It doesn't surprise me.
No, as I say, a good guy. Obviously, Malcolm as well, his dad, who I still keep in contact with, good bloke, and I do wish him well. But also, you've got older Tommy Penfold in, who we met. So the lads that were coming down, we met at the. It wasn't the Margate game. It was the fake team #United that we made sharp shrift of. We won the game anyway. But Tommy met him, proper centre half. He ticked all the boxes. Firm handshake as well, which is always very important. And come on, did a role. Talk about a bit about Tommy and why you signed him. Thanks.
Tommy, I coached Tommy when he was 12, 13, and he was a 5'0", skinny left winger, right winger, sometimes a number 10 dribbler, would go past people. Obviously, fast forward 10, 11 years, he's now 6'5", left-footed centre back. So yeah, he was at Kennington, won their Young Player of the Year, then got a move to Cray, played consistently for Cray this year. We saw an opportunity, like obviously with Stoney leaving, we needed to reinforce our central defence, and so that we saw an opportunity there where we thought, as I said, left-footed centre back, 6'5", great character, great personality, really good family around him as well. The right type of person you want in the building. Wants to improve, wants to kick on, and if he can do that with Hastings, then brilliant. Wants to be coached as well, so that was one of the things that when we spoke around him coming in was, he definitely knows he's not the finished article, and he wanted to see his game move in the right direction, and felt that we were the best environment to do that. Couple that with giving him a level of football which he's clearly capable of playing. So yeah, no, it's brilliant addition. I know it sounds cheesy, but the biggest thing is he's a proper young man. Like he's like the first team that we built, was built on, let's get good people in the building first. If you can do that, and you get a group of young men that, as I said, going back to what we said earlier on, that want to fight for the club, that potentially have that affinity and connection with the club. That when even on a bad day, they still give you a 6, 7 out of 10 performance. When their touch isn't perfect and it's not quite happening, they've got it in them to grind and work and grit it out. that's what we want. You know, worst case, like I could get all the tactics wrong and the team be all over the place, but we'd always be competitive because of the type of character we've got out on the pitch. So Tommy's ideal for that.
Yeah, he definitely seemed that way, and he's only just come in there. We got half an hour. Did he go half an hour?
It's 45 minutes. Yeah,
45?
We needed to make some changes because it was a matter of time till hashtag.
We won the game. We won the game, Aggie. Yeah. I'll tell you this now, as just honestly, as a fan, that team would 6 weeks ago, even 4 weeks ago, would not have got a result. We'd have been hammered. The effort levels are completely different now. The Georges of the world would say we've got our Hastings back. There's definitely a passion for wearing that shirt again, it would seem, and that might just be that the levels have dropped so low.
No, I think credit to the lads, really. Like when I think of the first team that I inherited, and I think we were 21st in the league and in the league below, and it was pretty bleak. This group is completely different. This is a really good group of, first and foremost, good people. There's some very, very, very good players in there as well. So when, as I said, like when I walked into, I spoke to all the players individually before the Margate game. Obviously, there was concerns around new manager coming in, big changes, team getting ripped apart, and I was really keen to point out that's not going to happen. Like we've got a really competitive side that can, I think, meet the demands of the owners, meet the expectations of supporters. I think we've got that already. It just needed a bit of tweaking, maybe a different type of stamp on it. You know, obviously, I can't comment on what the expectations were previously, but my feel, I can only talk about what I can see, and my feeling is that it's a really good group of players with one or two. And as I said, a certain type of organisation, it can be really competitive and do what the club demands.
Yeah, I mean, a big sort of shout to some of the London lads that are still there, like obviously like the John Ufers and.
The thing is, Chris, we've always had lads that have travelled in, like Daniel Adjukai, Lamra Aziz, Hass Ibrahim, Charlie Horlock, Craig Stone, Gary Elphick, Sam Bill. Like there's like Youssef Bamba. Like when I go through all of the players that we've worked with, I've definitely forgotten some.
Yeah.
Manny Mensah, Jamal Howlett Mundell. We've always had lads that have travelled in. It's just making sure that they're here for the right reasons. That's the big. Like, you want, as I said, if like we've got like Sam McCoy and Charlie Granger travelling in nearly 2.5 hours, but I think they see the direction that we want to go in, the way that we want to play. They see the support base and the fan base. Like they know it's a big club. I think they know they're going to improve as well. That's a big thing for, especially with this. No, to be fair, with every lad that I've worked with, you know, like if you get the right type of person, they want to improve, they want to get better. So what I'm saying is we've always had lads travel in, but it's always been for the right reason. And I think it's always really important as well that if you are bringing players in from further afield, not only are they the right type of person, but also you need to consider what's already in the building.
Yeah.
So you've got a Jamal Lubanga in the building who, as I said, has been here since he was 11, 12.
Yeah.
Real connection with the club. His family will come and watch him. He's invested in the club. Equally, the supporters know he's homegrown and one of ours, which means there's going to be more patience with him. There's going to be a deeper connection, like between players and supporter. What you don't want to be doing is blocking his pathway to the first team if he's good enough. And that's what I have been keen to say to the lads as well. Like, just because you live in Hastings and you come through the academy doesn't mean you're going to get the opportunity. You've got to be good. And then equally, just because you're travelling from further afield doesn't mean you're going to get moved on because you're not from Hastings. Ultimately, it's about putting a team on the pitch, as I said, that can meet the expectations of the club, that can move the club in the right direction, but also something the supporters can buy into. And because that's a powerful thing. Like, I think I said it to you the other week. It's almost like the Newcastle of non-league. Like, I think if you can meet the demands of supporters, the supporters, like our supporters, will go wherever they need to go with you, like, and back you 100%. Like against Margate, as soon as we conceived the goal, all I could hear was our supporters, and I think part of that will be because they know they've got players on the pitch that are trying their best and are trying to represent the club in the right way. So with that in mind, it's a powerful thing that if we can really play on that connection with the supporters and make sure we put a team on the pitch which that you guys can buy into, then like the old 12th man stuff. It's a bit of a cliche, but I've seen it. I've seen it where we've had penalties given. They're never penalties. Like never. I can remember it was in it was the last game in the COVID year where we'd just gone 6 points clear at the top. We had the game in hand and we were playing Whitstable at home. I can remember it. And it was Lamrazi.
That's probably Robbie. He likes to influence refs.
Well, but do you know what? It was Lamrazi when jinked past a couple of players in the box, and it was one of the worst dives I've ever seen.
No, he anticipated contact. Come on.
But the roar behind the roar in the Steve Smith stand meant the referee decision. So longest way ever of saying that if we can, as I said, give something in terms of type of football and the players on the pitch, something for the supporters to get behind, then that's a pretty powerful thing.
It's words there, Aggie. Right. It's just from Peter Thomas Edmonds. Sends this one in a little bit of a quick fire for you, Ags.
Yeah.
Prefer playing on 3G or grass?
Pilot field grass. Yeah, I don't think there's any substitute for that quality of surface. As I said, it's on the world's biggest pitch as well. So yeah, exactly. I'd definitely go pilot field grass.
Good answer. Right. Prefer playing with solid defence or lively attack?
I can't separate the two because for me, one of the best forms of defence is having the ball. So, and if you attack well and you're organised on the ball, as I said, but when we're like organising a team, we're not just we've got the ball. We're not solely thinking about putting the ball in net. We're also thinking about, well, if we lose the ball in this situation, we need to be in this position. So they come hand in hand. If you attack well, you'll defend well, and if you defend well, you'll attack well. That's I'd struggle to separate it.
Yeah, okay. Right. And do you prefer possession-based or fast breaks football?
Depends, really. It depends on what the game demands, to be honest. Depends on what players you've got. Depends on what the opposition are doing as well. I mean, I think ultimately, if you've got it sounds really basic, but my big thing is if you've got the ball, the other team can't score. And one of the things I would say is that traditionally had a really decent defensive record, and part of that is not only we were good off the ball and we had some very good individuals that were very good at keeping the ball out of our net, but it's also because we had an awful lot of the ball. And if you can limit the opposition to over a 96-minute game to having the ball 40% of the time, you're probably going to concede less. So, but then within that, what I would say is, and it's something that we were trying to do against hashtag, we recognise that they were quite aggressive in their press. So we felt that almost from our own goal kicks, we could create counter-attacking type situations, bringing a lot of people under the ball, playing the first one short to then really make them commit to then play into a 3v3 in big spaces. And when you got John Afua, Teo Ayabola, Freddie Legg, Sam McCoy in big spaces 1v1, you get success. So longest answer ever of saying probably a mixed... Sorry, it should be a quick fire, not a quick fire. Yeah, it just depends. There's so many variables in that.
No, of course there is. Well, again, I'll question you. Prefer playing out from the back or longer balls upfield?
Depends.
Depends, yeah.
So again, for me, if we're gonna play longer passes, they have to be deliberate, and we can't be smashing the ball up the pitch without a thought process. So, for example. But that was because we, as I said, wanted to play the first couple shorter, make them commit more numbers to their press, which then means we're potentially 3v3 in bigger spaces, which then lends itself to going a little bit longer. So it just depends on what the opposition are doing. It wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense to say the opposition drops off. It wouldn't make sense to just chip the ball on top of all their numbers. For me, it's about creating spaces and then playing accordingly. So, as again, like the hashtag situation was, again, try and bring them under the ball, try and bring them towards the ball with shorter passes to then go longer. It might be because of the certain type of opposition or the certain players that we've got out on the pitch, it might be the opposite. It just depends.
Yeah. Okay. One last one on this one, which is a preferred plan with wing backs or out and out wingers.
Out and out wingers.
Okay. Yeah, that was a quick answer, that one. Right. So Pete asks, in general, what's the most? What have you learnt most since being away? Anything stand out?
I've learnt a lot, which is the delay. I think it's reinforced a lot of things that probably originally thought. That was a big one. Reinforce the importance of being honest and straight and being real, and how far that can get you. Ultimately, when you're working with the time at Stevenage, you walk into a first team changing room and you're thinking, we've got a couple of like internationals in there, like they've played for their country, with players that have played for Celtic. This is going to, how can I them and stuff like that. But then very quickly you realise they're just men that are slightly better at playing football, and that ultimately, if you're honest and you're real and you're humble enough as well to realise that you don't know everything, I think that can go a long way. And also, if you do know what you're talking about, or you do know a fair bit, that can also go a long way. That's really sort of obvious, basic answers. Also confidence as well, because you look at that level of football and you think there's something going on there that you would never have considered or thought about, and it's going to be this shiny, amazing oracle level of knowledge that you didn't think was out there, and then very quickly you go, oh, actually, like we were doing some really good stuff at Hastings. Like, oh, actually, I know a little bit more than what I thought I did. So probably gained a little bit of confidence in terms of my own sort of ability. One of the other, I think, also prioritising the priorities. So it's a bit like therapy, actually. So beforehand, I've always been all or nothing, which is why I've done the 18s, 19s, 21s first team and at the club. I've always sort of thrown everything into it. And I'm still the same, but I think I'm probably a little bit older and a little bit wiser in terms of, rather than trying to do 10 things and maybe doing them at a 7 out of 10, you're better off in the initial period attacking 3 or 4 things, do that 10 out of 10 or as best ability, and then eventually get to doing the 10 things you need to do to the best level. That's prioritising the priorities. As I said, definitely not taking the foot off the gas and not being all in, because that's just the way I am.
Right, where do you think we're the strongest? Defence, midfield, or attack, from what you've seen?
Oh, I'm gonna get splinters on my arse here, but
you are.
I think it's a really good group. I think it's a really good group. I don't think we're a million miles off, to be honest, across the board. I mean, I'd be surprised if there's many better goalkeepers in the league than Charlie Granger. I look at the addition of Tommy, couple that with Ollie Black, some of the blocks that Jason's made over the course of the season, not just in the last 2 games. There's loads to like there. In midfield, if there's a better midfield player than Adam Lovett in the league, I'll be shocked. We've got TT Walters, like young Keane and Jamal have done great. And then in forward areas like John, as I said, I tried to sign John when I was here before, when he was at Whitstable. Again, TT Walters tried to sign when he was at Herne Bay. And then you got David Teo. I thought Teo was great on Saturday. So I'm pretty happy with what we've got, to be honest. I think it's a balanced team.
Right. So go on. Sorry, Gags, go on.
No, I was just going to say I like it. I think there's loads to like. So,
because the next question is, if you had a bit of a bigger budget, where would you get anyone in? But you're not going to answer that, are
you? No, I think, as I said, I think the pressing issue was to try and replace Craig Stone. And now we've done that, albeit in a different way. Tommy is obviously a little bit younger and is at a different stage in his journey, but ultimately in terms of like for like, centre-back for centre-back, we've done that. I'm pretty happy, If you said, I've always been conscious of keeping a real tight group as well. That was one of the standout learnings from the first year, where we lost in the playoff semi-final against Ashford, was the squad was too big. It was too bloated. Whereas what we've done after that, we obviously stripped the squad back to around 14 senior players, and then the rest of the 18-man squad would be academy players. So, and that worked relatively well for us, didn't it? So I think with that in mind, and with the numbers we've got and the quality of players we've got, as I said, you could put a massive check in front of us, and I don't think there's a massive need for as I said, like going back to what you said earlier around financially and how we're looking, like we're in a really good place. So, you know, we could, if we wanted to, go and make additions and be quite aggressive with that. But what I don't want to do is, I don't want to bring someone in now and then they move on 2 weeks later because they're not the right fit. I want to make sure that they're the right type and that this is a longer term plan. So we're looking 2-3 years. So Tommy Penn, when we spoke to Tommy, we're looking at 2-3 years, and we want to build something. And what I don't want to do is bring people in and then they move on after 2 weeks. That's not what the team needs, and I don't think any successful team's really been built on that. No,
fair enough. Right then. Who's the biggest influence on your career?
Oh, well, there's a lot of people. Do you know what? In terms of like impacting it, I know it sounds a bit cheesy. It's probably my wife, actually. Like, because
you're not even at home. You're not even.
No, I'm not. She's not even like over. Yeah,
just cut the yards away.
I initially went into full-time coaching. I used to work in engineering, and it was a good job. It was a really good job, and it was really well paid, and it was comfortable. And it was. I can remember we were planning for our wedding, and I took an outrageous gamble and left. Financially, it was tough, but she backed me all the way. Right, and when, as I said, when I've made big decisions before, like with the first decision where I was with Hastings and where I was, as I said, tired, and we didn't have the next job lined up as much as what people may think. Like, that was just before Christmas, but she could see that I was tired, and she just backed us. I said, I can't do it anymore. I need a break. Yeah. And she just backed us. So she's had a massive influence because there's a lot. I've taken some steps and made jumps which I think less supportive people wouldn't have allowed to happen, and ultimately that's sort of led us to where I am now, which is in first team football in a great place at a big club, looking excited, and looking forwards really. So that would be the biggest personal influence, and then obviously you've got the more football wise, the obvious ones, obviously Pep Guardiola, Johan Cruyff, Arsene Wenger, Sir Alex Ferguson, all of these greats that you have to take, when, albeit at a very different level, with what I'm going to try to do. And as a first team manager, you can't not take sort of influence from those types of, the best in the game. Jose Mourinho as well. So,
I'm a bit annoyed you didn't mention him straight away there, Aggie. But being a Gooner, you wouldn't, would you?
No, I've always liked Jose Mourinho. I've always quite liked. I would have liked him to have been the Arsenal manager, but yeah, no, and again, like the lads that we've worked with as well, like Gary Elphick, Sammy Adams, Craig Stone, like Stoney, who's, as I said, won the millions of promotion. Gary Elphick, who's been there and done it. Spending time with these people as well, like I'm working with them. You go, they've had a big influence as well. Like Sam Adams, in terms of like what does the ideal Hastings United captain look like, or what does your ideal captain look like? That's had an influence on us choosing Adam Lovett as our captain. Sammy, he could shout and ball, but ultimately his actions spoke louder than his words, and the way he led the group just by his his natural instinct and the way he carried himself. He just epitomised everything that we wanted from the group. And so, as I said, that's had an influence in terms of, well, if we want a similar type of captain, then I looked at our group and you go, Adam Lovett, like, been there, done it, best midfield player at the level, will go again, I'm sure about that, wants to learn, wants to improve, high standards, demanding. So there's been, again, longest answer ever of saying there's been loads of influences.
Right then, God, I've got Tim Reeves asks, can you ask Mr. Agutterer whether he has a plan B this time round? I think ultimately, so you look at the top teams in the country or the top teams at a level, and you, through sort of first viewing, you look at it and go, they play one way, they've got plan A, not sure about plan B, but they have a way of playing, and there's a clear style and identity there. But I think the genius to it is within that style there being plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, and I think that's the real genius of it, in terms of if to the first view and you go, it's just playing the same way all the time, but then when you drill down with a bit more
of a closer lens and a bit more detail, you realise, well, actually, they're doing this today. With it, so it looks like a lot of the time, it looks the same. But then when you actually look at it and break it down, when you go, there's loads of variables. There's loads of, as I said, Plan B, Plan C, Plan D. So yeah, that for me is the when I think of what we've done originally. Obviously, there'll be progression on that because I think we've gone away and improved and developed my understanding and knowledge and. As I said, it's a different group of players, so maybe it has a different set of demands. But also part of that learning whilst going away was realising that we've done an awful lot well. And as I said, I would challenge most people that viewed my first time at the club as just Plan A and nothing else, because again, maybe that's a sort of backhanded compliment to what we've done, because often people would look at it and go, doing the same things all the time, but. And there was so much variation and flexibility to what we were doing, but we were, they were subtle, or rather than playing with a right winger playing up against a left back. So rather than Lamray standing up against a left back one week, we might drop him a little bit deeper because we recognise Ben Pope has got the beating of the centre back down the side. So we pull Lamray deeper to pull the fullback out, which then gives us space to play down the side. And then expose Ben Pope 1v1. But then the next week, because we think Ben Pope, for example, is a different type of challenge, we think we can dominate centrally in midfield. We've got an extra number in there. We might push Lamray a little bit higher to pin the fullback, which then exaggerates the 4v3 in the middle of the midfield. Now, at first viewing, you look at that and go, oh, they're just doing the same thing. But then within that, there's loads of variation and loads of variables, which means one week we might be playing short passes through midfield because we've got the overload because Lamray's high. And then the next week we're playing slightly longer passes because Lamray's deeper and we're trying to expose the centre-back down the sides up against a more mobile centre-forward. So, I think ultimately the crux of it is if you've got the ball, you've got more chance of winning the game. The opposition have got less chance of scoring. You've got more opportunity of scoring. So that's really the foundation to everything that we do. But then, again, there'll be nuance within it and there'll be variables and it'll be what the opposition are doing. So again, at the weekend, we knew they were going to aggressively press high. We felt that they would be comfortable pushing their centre-backs on to try and match up with our numbers in deeper areas, which then meant we would then get Jonathan, Teo Ayebola, Freddie Legg, Sam McCoy 1v1 in big spaces, which I felt we could dominate. So, and the winning goal comes from Jonathan getting it 1v1 in a big space, going down the outside and crossing it to Teo. So again, there'll be variables, but I'd be shocked if it looks completely different week to week, and I definitely don't think that would be the best thing for sort of sustained success like we had before.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I'll tell you, we've got George Gasson. I think you may know him. He says after bringing back Ollie Maldini Black and Kian Zidane Moyes, what other local talent should we be excited about? I know you mentioned Jamal, obviously, as well. But any other players?
Yeah, Jamal was. I can remember he made his first team debut against Upfield in the pre-season a few years ago. So he's been there or thereabouts. As I said, I think he's done really well. He started really well. Loads more to come from him. Expect loads more to come from him. Josh Turner's just been promoted to the first team squad. So again, he's been with the club for 5-6 years. 6'2" centre back, can also play holding midfield. You've got JJ Walker, who again, another lad really like, can play centre back, can play holding midfield. We've got Finney Chapman as well, who Gaz gave his first team debut to back in the last year, attacking midfield player. They're the standout ones at the minute, but where I'm working my notice at the minute, I haven't had as much opportunity as I would have liked to have seen the younger players at the club. So what I will do is, as soon as I'm back in the building full time, that'll be the first thing that we'll be doing is looking at what we've got and seeing who the next one is. So as ever, there's plenty of exciting players that are knocking on the door from the club's academy program.
Okay, Lee Parnell asks, bringing the questions down a bit because I know we've been going a while now. I do appreciate your time, Aggie. First of all, what do you think the goal is for this season? Is it to steady the ship or is it to push for promotion?
Well, I'd say it's early days. That's what I would say. So yes, we've won 2 out of 2, but we're a million miles away from where I'd like us to be, or where I think this group of players can be. But again, that's credit to the lads that they've been able to get 6 points out of 6, but yet still not be where I think the potential of the group is. And again, credit to the players for that. I'm always looking to move forwards and challenge, and like we'll always go into every game. At this level, if we get a draw in the FA Cup, moving forwards, obviously further down the line, we'll always be trying to find the best way to win that game. So I know it sounds obvious, but we'll be going into every game trying to win it. And with what we've got and what we've added, and over time, I think we should be going into every game like thinking that we can win it as well. So that's a very diplomatic answer, but I think that probably come hand in hand. I think as the ship is steadied, some of the ideas that we're trying to introduce are nailed home a little bit more, which then means we can add a little bit more layers to our plan. Again, I'm really conscious it is early days, and as I said, it's 6 points out of 6, great, but it's and again that's down to the lads, to be honest. That's not down to me. There's only so much that we could have affected in 2 weeks, and I think the players can take the credit for that, to be honest. So I think it's going to take time. It'll take time, but as I said, that's not an excuse to not be competitive. We'll always go into every game trying to win it, and with an expectation or an understanding of how to win the game. So it's a longer term. That's one of the things that I was excited about, is that we're building something. So very similar to what I took over in the first time at the club. It was right at the start of the project, and you had an opportunity to build something. And again, it's very similar, just probably definitely from a better base in terms of the personnel, and at a better level. So it's exciting.
No, of course it is. And also, Lee asks, any idea when Tommy Chalmers will be back?
As I've actually been on this call, I haven't been able to check my messages, but I've got news on Tom's scan, so I haven't checked it. So
you need to kick me off before you can find out, basically. Are we having a look? Hang on. This is absolutely live.
He's back in training, which is great news, this Thursday.
Oh, excellent.
So hopefully not too long, which will be a huge boost. Again, that's another thing, like when we said about bringing players in and stuff like that, can't forget that we've got that monster that's sitting there waiting to put on a Hastings shirt again. So that's exciting.
Well, as I was saying to Matty, obviously Matty related to Tom, you just don't want him to rush back because he's young. And I know he wants to just get playing football immediately, but, because that's such a horrible injury to get. Horrendous.
Bless
him. So anyway, right. Okay, Nick Saxby asks. Nick asks. I thought Andrew Brown had come in with you, but are you going to have an assistant, Aggie? Is it Andrew? What's the situation there?
Well, originally planned, it was going to be Brownie coming in with us, but subsequently he's been offered a full-time job at Brighton.
Okay.
Which has meant the goalposts have moved slightly, and we're a bit of a grey area with it. That's ongoing. But what we do have is obviously Ben Cornelius has rejoined the first team staff, and I envisage that for the short term, whilst there's a grey area over the assistant manager situation, that Ben will fill that void. And it's, as I said, it's an interesting dynamic at the club, because I don't know how many football clubs owners are ex-managers, ex-players that have managed the club, been around the club for years. Like, their football knowledge is considerable. So like, there's a wealth of knowledge there. So there's no shortage of people at the football club that can add value from a football perspective. So that means that there's not a huge rush in terms of appointing a 100% first team manager, assuming Brownie doesn't come through, because as I said, there's so many good football people at the club that we can bounce off and share ideas. And again, going back to what I was saying earlier, like where everyone's very clear in the direction we want to head in those conversations, we're all on the same page, which is good. So
okay, I'm going to ask one more question, and apologies to the people that have asked questions as well. We can always do it another time you come on, but it's the last one's from Keith Wareham. First of all, he says it's absolutely fantastic that you're back. And his question is, are you bringing in another midfielder and striker?
again, like it's. I don't think there's a burning need for it at the moment. I mean, I mentioned it in. I spoke to the club on Saturday. David's going to be our main man.
30 goals a season, he reckons he's getting. That's what he said.
Yeah, I'll hold him to that as well. But he certainly can do. Dav's just one of them. He just needs to run the games, and he needs to be trusted. And he's one of them lads that, like, if he feels like the main man and he's told he's the main man, he'll play the main man. And he's always done that, to be honest. So the centre forward situation is interesting. But what I would say, I thought Teo was excellent up there Saturday. I thought he played really well. So I don't think there's a burning need for it. As I said, you got Keane, you got Jamal. There's Ibs Bangura, who came in as a left back, but I think can play midfield. So we've got like good numbers, but most importantly, good quality in those positions. So if we are going to bring anyone in, we know they're going to be the right type, because we're not in a massive rush. As I said, I really like the group, which is a good position to be in, because, as I said, I don't want to just bring someone in for the sake of it and realise we've got someone already in the building that's better, but because they've got a sexier name, or they're from further afield, or they're a bigger name, ends up blocking the way of someone that is already in the building that could do just as good a job or even better over longer term. So, whoever we bring in, it's with a view to longer term and not as a short-term stopgap, for sure.
Just for me, quickly, we've got Crawley down Gatwick tonight. This podcast don't come out till Saturday. We've had conversations before, Aggie, and you said that you're going to play the first team. Is that the case? Is it going to be a mixture, or is it just like first team session, basically?
We're just going to try and win every game, and try and play every game with as strong a side as possible, and senior cups of competition that we can realistically win. So,
that'd be nice to have a little cup run.
Yes, yeah. I've always sort of thought that Saturday, Tuesday, part-time football. I'm not sure how much need there is to rotate, to be honest. I think, again, if you do your work in pre-season and get a decent base to work with, I think the group should be able to go Saturday, Tuesday. I think as well, if you're part of a winning side, let's just keep playing games and keep trying to move in the right direction, really.
All right. So is that David back in the team, or is that Teo staying up front for today?
Teo's actually at a wedding in Brazil, lucky devil. So David's coming straight back into the side. Okay.
Wow. Semi-pro football way. There you go. Okay. Well, listen, look, Aggie, absolute pleasure. English Jose, thank you. It's great that you're back. I know we've got a full coach going today. There's lots of people trying to get there. Unfortunately, I can't be there. But all the best. And, I won't see you at that game, but I'll see you at the game Saturday. So, Aggie, thanks very much for this.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, right. Take care, Aggie.
Right.
See you, mate.